War strategy is the next. Don't expect the enemy not to come. Rely on the ways you have to meet him. Don't expect the enemy not to attack you. Rely on your positions to be unapproachable for the attack. War Art by Sun Tzu. We start our journey from the south of Ukraine. This is the state of the most ancient civilization of the planet and numerous historic events. From nearly every town you can get to Odesa by train, bus or plane. It's the place which is called the main sea gates of the country. It's the region center of the biggest district of Ukraine, which area is 33.3 thousand square kilometers. Odesa is a pretty young city. It is 214 years old. Only 80 kilometers away to the west, there is an ancient city called Bilhorod-Dnistrovskyi. From the first sight you can't determine, but if you go deep into history, full of legends and curious facts, you'll learn something interesting. Athens, Rome, Damascus, Beirut, Beijing, Bilhorod-Dnistrovskyi. These towns are in UNESCO list of the 10 ancient towns of the world, which have been existed for 2,500 years. In 1998, Bilhorod-Dnistrovskyi was 2,500 years old, and something else. Ophiusa, Tira, Alba Giulia, the White City, Levkopolis, Asprokastron, Monte Castro, Ackerman. There are more than 10 of such names, and there are historic events and ethnic conquests behind each of them. This is Bilhorod-Dnistrovskyi, or Ackerman, as the citizens like to call it. There were the times when it minted its own coins, had its forces, and in the year 57 BC it started its own system of chronology. It was under the power of Rome, later it was a part of Kiev Rus. Then it was conquered by Tatar, Mongols, and Venetians. Hungarians, Polish, Moldavians played the masters there. Since 1984, for 300 years, it was under the power of Turkey. Looking at these streets, it's hard to believe you are standing on the threshold of the ancient civilization. The Ackerman fortress is in Bilhorod-Dnistrovskyi. We are going to this wonderful structure to touch the living history in its present, to unite our mind and feelings with the source of ever-living matter, of the spirit of all times. Here we can find the answers to some questions, feel the breath of undiscovered mysteries, and will be happy to see the beauty of the powerful walls and towers. So why is it just here, on this very place? What was this wall construction built for? First of all, this place is very convenient from the strategic point of view. There was always a threat of invasion from the Black Sea. Secondly, this fortress was a shelter for the citizens. Beside it, by the fortress walls, not deep in the ground, there are the digs of the ancient settlements. Sliding along the labyrinths, the steppe wind utters the life itself, and if you lend an attentive ear to it, you'll definitely hear the hardly heard sounds of the life of those times. Thanks to the advantageous trading position, very soon Tira became a state city instead of the colony and minted its own currency as coins. The fertile soil, with rich harvest of grapes, wheat, oil-bearing plants, and the Dniester River interflowing into the Black Sea, these are the main things needed for life and trade development. That's why, in 502 BC, where the two trades ways were crossing, the ancient Greeks founded this town. Its first names were Ophiusa and Tira. The ancient religious ideas connected with winemaking and vine growing have the signs of pagan faith. During vintage, the different periods of winemaking, there were celebrations to honor the Greek god of wine, making Dionysus. He was honored everywhere where wine was growing. By the end of the 14th century, Belgorod became a part of the Moldavian Principality, which was under the protectorate of Hungary. On the bank of the Firth, the construction of the town began. The building of the fortifying was begun by the Genoa merchants. The Turkish fleet could not seize the fortress at once. Inspired by an easy victory, the Moldavian master continued the works on building and strengthening of the fortress. When the construction was finished, the area of the fortress, which was 9 hectares of the land, was surrounded by a 15-meter moat filled with water, a drawbridge and towers. The historians can't agree about the date of the construction and the names of the people who built it. Some of them think they were Slavic, others Genoa citizens or Moldavian. The medieval fortress is considered to be the biggest in Ukraine. The Turkish traveler Evliya Çelebi wrote about it. Worthless me, I visited 7,060 fortresses in the world, but I have never seen such a deep and terrifying moat like this one. This is what one official of the Ottoman Empire, the Bey, who went with his troops through half of Europe, wrote from Hungary to one of the richest European merchants. It was a part of a secret plan to seize the fortress by Turks. Amazing things are told about this land. The local citizens are firmly convinced that on the mountain above the wide lake called the Firth there is a special fortress. Its walls are of yellow stones. They are impregnable for enemy arrows and troops because they were bewitched by the Polivet's shaman, who was a powerful magician. They say the stones are alive. Their rough surface keeps the memory of the gone heroes and times. The stones protect the science of the times and create a legend. If you touch them with your palm, you can hear the far voices of the spirits who came from eternity to see the ghosts of the warriors climbing the high fortress walls. Ackerman fortress does not look like strict buildings of European citadels with gloomy sheer walls of grey stone. It looks like this amazing fortress absorbed all the local color of the picturesque land. It's an amazing piece of war architecture art. It has outside protective constructions necessary to stop the enemy and the inside as well, to organize an effective resistance. There are different versions about the construction of the fortress. It had been built for 200 years. Some people considered it to be Turkish, others Moldavian, and the castle Genoa. According to those times, it was a rather powerful war defensive construction. There had always been a constant garrison inside that had enough weapons and had everything to keep a continuous struggle to stand the siege. Why was it unapproachable and safe? The fortress is built on the high rocky band of the Dniester firth of the local limestone. On the plan, it looks like an irregular multangular with an area of 9 hectares. The length of the defensive walls is 2.5 kilometers. The height of the walls and towers is from 5 to 15 meters. The thickness is from 1.5 to 5 meters. There is a deep ditch from 3 sides of the wall. The 4th side is washed by the waters of the firth. The depth of the ditch is up to 10 meters. It used to be 20 meters in the beginning, and its width is 14 meters. The ditch was filled with the Dniester water with the help of a special pumping construction, which worked due to the pulling power. Thanks to the usage of the sluices, the water stayed inside the ditch. There are military towers inside the ditch to deflect the enemy who managed to get inside the ditch. From the side of the town, there are 2 rows of the walls around the fortress. The first one is inside the fortress ditch, and it used to be a place of cover for the soldiers, who had to prevent the enemy's attempt to climb the ditch with the help of improvised means like assault ladders, logs, and ropes. The wall was approximately as high as a man's height and was equipped with such gun ports. The gun port looks like a truncated pyramid, faced with its wide foundation outside. The lowest surface of the gun port is called a foot, the side surfaces, the chicks. Its size was so big that a point of a gun or some other piece of ordnance could go inside, turn different sides, and lit the needed angle. This wall does not exist now, but it saved from destruction another fortress wall. The second protective line is the walls behind which the warriors were to repel the enemy's attack. On the top, the walls are equipped with merlons and gun ports, which altogether form a crenellage. The height of these walls is 5 to 6 meters. The thickness is up to 2 meters. You can judge how strong the walls were by this struck cannon ball. Glory to the builders and heroes! We are going further. Between the curtains, which is the distance between the towers, there are 26 towers of different height and shape. They are situated approximately 45 meters one from another and have different juts. What is their main purpose? Why so many of them were needed? If we remove them in mind, we'll notice difficulties with lengthwise firing of the walls. It's also known that the towers were a safe place for the troops who used different war machines during the defense. Throwing projectiles and stones when are sent from the high walls fall down hard on those who are on the bottom. Ballistant onagers are better than all other guns if they are thrown by experienced warriors, and neither bravery nor anything else can protect fighting men from them. As a blow of lightning, they destroy and pierce everything they strike. A part of the towers covered up with earth and stones is the bastions, on which there were guns, and this is how they looked like. A bastion, French word is bastion from the late Latin bastilio, which means I'm building a fortifying. So, it's a pentagonal fortifying built in the corners of a fortress fence to fire at the locality ahead and along the fortress walls, or ditches before them. For the first time, the bastion appeared in Italy at the end of the 15th century. Facing one another, parts of two neighboring bastions and the fence uniting them, called cortina, formed a bastion battle front. 12 hollow castles used to be habitable rooms and were adjusted for self-defense. There are 3 entrance gates in different places. One gate is from the dry land, and 2 others are from the firth. You could enter the fortress from the dry land through the tower of the main entrance. It was locked by the drawbridge made of stone, which weight was not less than 3 tons. There are 4 courts inside the fortress. Each of them had its own purpose and could defend itself. 1- and 2-story constructions were built here. To provide an urgent evacuation of the citizens into the fortress, the town is planned in such a way that the streets start from the fortress and go in different directions from the town. Such a plan provided an urgent evacuation and the ability to hold a defense. The towers are many-storied constructions equipped for self-defense. They covered the nearest approaches to the walls and were a strong point of the fortress fence. The towers became semicircle wall juts, open from the town side. They were called bastilles or rondellas. In this civil court, all the towers have their history and their names. Watchtower. Pushkin's Tower. A minaret. In Arabic, minaret means a lighthouse. Beginning from the 8th century, the minaret became the most important site of the mosque. It was a high tower from which the call to pray was proclaimed. But very soon the minaret became a symbol of Muslim presence on the occupied territories. From 1484 to 1512, a big mosque in the civil court was being constructed. The second court was a garrison. The entrance into the court was through a special tower. Unfortunately, it has not been preserved. Here there were barracks, hospitals, stables, and warehouses everywhere. This court and a citadel create a feeling of splendor and safety. There is a special aura here. The citadel is built in a Byzantine style, and in the middle there is a third little court. This is the territory of the most ancient part of the fortress, the architectural monument of the end of the 13th and beginning of the 14th centuries. Just from this place, the construction of all fortress courts was held. The word citadel is of French origin. It means a little town. It's a construction inside a fortress fence, equipped enough for self-defense. On the south wall of the citadel, which thickness is up to 4.8 meters, is the main entrance. Only people on foot or one horseman could come inside. This kind of fortress gate, mini-tunnel with a cylindrical dome, was the most popular in Europe in the 14th and 15th centuries. Inside the military towers there are still remainders of a stone staircase and the ceiling on different floors. In the walls there are galleries leading to the firth, in which the builders made a water system of clay. During the research, 2 underground passageways were found through which you could get into the town. Now these passageways are half filled up with earth. This court used to be fully lined with buildings. The walls were safe, their thickness was 5 meters. In the corners of the court there were 2 round towers. 2 from the side of the firth were military ones. The rest were curfew towers and a prison. The southeast tower of the citadel, also called donjon or curfew tower, was used for commander's security. It is about 16 meters high, and its outside diameter is 14.2 meters. Its height could reach more than 20 meters. This safest tower of the citadel performed the duties of donjon, taking under its control the military actions and being an observation post and last defender's refuge. Similar cylindrical donjons were spread in the East and Byzantium. In Western and Central Europe they appeared only in the 12th, 13th centuries. According to its type, a citadel belongs to a group of Roman Byzantium right-angled towers, flanked with corner cylindrical towers. The made analysis helped to determine that the main measures of the citadel perfectly correspond to the Byzantine system of linear measures. So we can make a conclusion that the Belgorod citadel is a creation of the masters who belong to the Byzantine school. The defensive capacity of the whole ensemble is impressive. From the dry land, the defense was provided with double walls, called antitehisma and protehisma, a deep ditch with water. Its width was about 14 meters. From the firth, the defended area was covered with a steep rock, double walls and a port court. The port court is 1.5 hectares. It used to be a swinger and defended itself with 3 cylindrical towers. Through the gates, the goods were imported into the first court of the castle, and here trade operations were held. In 1888, the outside walls of the castle were destroyed, washed away by the water. For every medieval fortress, the entrance gate is a privileged junction with a triple function: traffic, defensive, and aesthetic capacity. The big gate had a drawbridge united by a chain with a metal jersa. A defensive potential depended on defensive quality of the entrance gate. In case of danger, they were blocked with the help of different means. At the beginning of the 19th century, the drawbridge was changed into the usual one and had stone supports. The entrance gate has ornamental elements typical for Eastern, Byzantine, and Gothic architecture. Even today, we are impressed by the beauty of the entrance tower. The unpretentious ornament underlines how monumental it is. When the powerful Ottoman Empire won half of Europe, Belgorod lands were doomed. Many different guns left their signs on the walls, and only Turkish soldiers tested their steadfastness in full when they came to the town in the summer of 1420 and then in 1454. In the 15th century, they made several attempts to capture the fortress, but the hardest one was in August 1484, when a 300,000 army of the Turkish Sultan Bayezid II and Crimean Khan Mengli besieged the fortress from the dry land and the firth. After a 16-day siege, the defenders had to surrender the enemy. For long 328 years, the Turkish domination was settled, and the town got a new name, Akerman, which means a white stone in Turkish, and became a part of Turkish lands. For the 16th and 17th centuries, Ukrainian Cossacks took the field to the walls of the Akerman fortress under the hetmanship of Lobada, Sirko, and Colonel Pali. Formidable walls did not stop the Dnieper Cossacks. During the hetmanship, the Cossacks won over it not once and destroyed the Turkish bastions. In 1770, 1779, and 1806, the Russian army liberated the fortress from Turks, and only in 1812 the Bucharest Peaceful Treaty was signed between Russia and Turkey. The historic documents testify that after the liberation of Belgorod, during the Russian-Turkish campaign of 1789, the commandant of the fortress for some time was a corps commander Mikhail Kutuzov. In 1832, the fortress was abolished as a military defensive construction. In 1896, it was declared as a historic architectural monument. Since ancient times, things were the determining factors in mankind's actions, influencing all sides of people's life. People investigated thoroughly nature phenomena, space, its rhythms and laws. Pre-Christian period was the time when pagans' faith was widely spread among people. They worshipped gods of natural power and cooperated with them, using such mediators as modeling figures, statues, images, signs, and symbols. Invocations and rituals gave the mediators of gods an incredible power. No wonder that this ancient knowledge came to our days. Religious of all people began to use it. After some investigations outside and inside the fortress, I was convinced that the Akerman fortress, like many European and Eastern castles and fortifications buildings, has its symbols and signs which have a protective and other meanings. Let's look at one symbol and try to determine its meaning. To do that, you need to lower down the bank of the northern side of excavations of Tira. There is an amazing symmetry in the wall, its hardened magic symbol of cannon balls. 10 balls make an equilateral triangle. There are 4 balls on each side, and 10 of them are all together. 10 points making a triangle of Pythagorean tetraxis was a symbol of great importance, and manuscripts say that to those whose mind was sharp, they revealed the mystery of universal nature. This triad can form its own hyperspace, a system of triangles one inside another. The system of 10 points, junctions, which was known to Pythagoreans, was an embodiment of a universal futility and a life-giving cross. According to Kabbalism, you put 4 letters of the great name of God, IHVH, in the shape of a Pythagorean tetraxis. You can find out 72 powers of the great name of God, and the present diagram is the key to all the process. This symbol has an important protective meaning and was used by the ordained ones. Maybe it plays an important part in the destiny of the fortress. One thing is clear: no one can learn the meaning of this symbol in full. We can only make guesses. The effect of the symbol is strengthened because it faces the north. On this very side there is a citadel where were commanders and things valuable for vital activity of the fortress. Maybe the key part of this symbol is that we can admire the great handmade miracle even nowadays. When you step foot on this land, let your heart be filled with gratitude, peace, and a deep sense of admiration. I'm sure the value of this construction is not only being a historic monument. It gives the possibility for every person to get something else. It touches moral swings of the soul. And new people are born among these walls, especially if the highest ethic laws are not broken. Glory to those ones who will revive with disinterestedness the great symbol of the heroes, defenders of the town. Only then the former glory and revival of the White Tower will come back. The script, camera work and special effects and sound by Stanislav Khrushchevsky. The Film Laboratory Alpha Film, 2008. The translation by Elena Dmitrieva. We can't go into the future without the sacred experience of the past. The past is a part of us, and in the present we start to form the future. You were accompanied by Stanislav Khrushchevsky.